Oh, and that's a brilliant effort, and they've turned it right around. In the space of a few minutes, Saudi Arabia grabbed control of the game.
Well, greetings everyone. Welcome back to Dawri, the Saudi football podcast, brought to you, of course, by Arab News, where this week we've got so much to look back on in the SPL and the AFC Champions League, and two major football events kicking off in Jeddah to look forward to. As always, it's a packed schedule. I'm your host, Peter Redding, and with me, as always, is Arab News sports editor Ali Khaled. We'll also be getting our regular dispatch from the excellent reporter, Khaled Alrafah. Now, Ali, before we look back on the week's highlights, the FIFA World Cup is almost here. Can't get my words out for the excitement.
Hi, Peter. Good to be back. Yes, it's finally here. The FIFA Club World Cup is here. It's taking place in Saudi, as we all know. As hosts, Saudi champions Al-Ittihad will take part alongside the Oceania champions, Auckland City of New Zealand, Asian champions, Arawa Red Diamonds of Japan, the African champions of Egypt, Leon of Mexico, Fluminense of Brazil, and of course, European champions Manchester City. The big kickoff is on Tuesday, December 12th. With Saudi champions, as we said, Al-Ittihad taking on Auckland City in the first round. Now, this is kind of like a preliminary round, Peter, the first of the matches. The rest of the matches follow 3 days later. But should the winner of that match will take on Al-Ahli on the 15th in the second round. So obviously there's a lot of expectations on Al-Ittihad, to win in front of their own fans. But, they come into the tournament with still major concerns on their form. We thought they turned a bit of a corner, it had some decent results with new manager Marcelo Gallardo, but then they lost to Damak, in the last league game, and again, so there's doubts. They've been inconsistent all season, Peter. They started off the season quite well. They signed some very good players in the summer, and of course Benzema, Fabinho, Otavio, and Fabinho and Benzema, being the two sort of main stars. I think
just hasn't happened for them, though, has it?
It just hasn't happened for them. They've they did lead the table briefly, and we thought they could go on to retain the title, but since then they've dropped off dramatically off the pace, and you could almost say they're out of the title race already. So a lot of expectations on them going into this. It will be a massive disappointment should they get knocked out. But hopefully, for the sake of the tournament, for the sake of Saudi football, and
it could be though, Ali, it could be that a fresh tournament gives them fresh impetus. A change from that domestic scene. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they should be excited. You're absolutely right, Peter. It should give. It's a different challenge. It's something everybody would look forward to. I mean, who wouldn't want to play in the Club World Cup? And so it'll take their minds off their league form. And the eyes of the football world will be on this tournament. So hopefully they can do themselves justice. The other thing starting on Tuesday, Pete, is the World Football Summit on the side of the Club World Cup. It's not related. The World Football Summit Asia is taking place in Jeddah. We'll see some big industry names, discussing topics such as, the revolution taking place in Saudi football, the business of running a football club, the growing role of tech in the game, investment in the game, links between Saudi football and La Liga. The World Football Summit is organized by a Spanish organization, so La Liga has a strong presence. Serie A, if Italy, has a strong presence as well. There's many, many more panels and talks, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm flying out to that in a couple of days, so that should be interesting as well.
And of course, given your standing in the game and in as a leading journalist, you're going to be involved, aren't you?
I am. I'm hoping to to give one of the to moderate one of the panels. So it's good to be involved in
Absolutely.
in these events. And like I said, a lot of interesting people, a lot of people that I know as well. Some from the media will be there. So it'll be nice to catch up with friends as well.
Brilliant. And also get some predictions from them as well, because we love that on this show. Looking forward to hearing about that. So do promise us that you can give us a full report on your return. Really looking forward to hearing all about that. And it just goes to show currently the excitement and everything that is geared around the game, which is good, which is happening in our kingdom. So good stuff. Look forward to hearing all about that. Okay, only one place to start really. The big Riyadh Derby, Al-Hilal against Al-Nassr.
Yes, Pete. I mean, last week everybody was looking forward to that game. A hugely anticipated match, massive. It was first against second. As we said, they went into the game with Al-Hilal 4 points ahead of Al-Nassr. In the end, it was an emphatic victory for Al-Hilal, at least an emphatic result, who beat Cristiano and co 3-0. It wasn't emphatic for a long time. It was probably a lot closer than the final result showed, although obviously in the end, Al-Hilal ran away with it. Very exciting match. Our man Khaled was at the match, and he had this to say earlier.
Hi Ali, hi Peter, how are you guys? So after the derby between Al-Hilal and Nassr at King Fahd International Stadium, the stadium was packed, almost 60,000 fans. They start arriving 3 p.m. The match was 9 p.m., imagine that. The match was equal, was really strong, not a lot of chances until the 62nd minute when Savic scored the goal. Things got changed and Nassr opened the field. They wanted to do something until the 89th minute when Mitrovic scored the second goal when they killed the match. And after that, he scored his second goal and the third goal for Al-Hilal to finish the match 3-0. After the match, I interviewed Mitrovic, who scored 2 goals, and he said he's so happy that he scored 2 goals and he wished he had more time to score the hat-trick. He was happy and he said, I've played so many derbies in my life. If this is not the best, of course this would be one of the best derbies I've played so far. And he liked the engagement between him and Al-Hilali's fans, promising them to do more and more, and describing how happy he is with Al-Hilal. And then we still have a lot of rounds to see. It's not finished yet. I'll get back to you, Ali, after the next round.
Thank you, Khaled. It was a tense match until those final few minutes, for sure. Al-Nassr really did throw everything at Al-Hilal, Peter, in those, I would say, like the last 20, 25 minutes. For long periods, they were camped in the Hilal half, but obviously Hilal defended really, really well. Ronaldo did score what would have been a sensational goal. It was correctly ruled out for offside, but he scored left-footed volley, like cross came in from the right, and he volleyed first time with his left foot. Superb shot into the top corner, but he had straight offside, so that was unfortunate. He was, you could see his frustrations coming near the end of the match. Throwing his arms up in the air quite a lot and all that, things which just not going his way, and as you can imagine with Cristiano, just gave it absolutely everything. But in the end, it wasn't enough. And look, I mean, the atmosphere in those throughout the match really, but near the end of the match was absolutely fantastic. The best, as we say, we've said this season that the fans, not always, but in those big matches, really have stepped up and shown the best of Saudi football fans to the world, and so it was again. Your old friend Alexander Mitrovic, Peter, again scored twice. He is the man of the moment in Saudi football right now, Pete. No doubt about that. After the match, he said that this was as good a derby as he has played in terms of atmosphere and quality, and you can imagine that's quite something to say.
Big compliment, Ali. Big compliment, because at the end of the day, he's played in the Tyne and Weir derby.
Absolutely.
In Premier League. And that goes up against Glasgow, Manchester, Liverpool, Everton. So that's a huge anecdote.
Absolutely. I mean, Pete, we know. I mean, you know more than anyone as being a huge Newcastle fan, for a season ticket holder who's been to many derbies in the past. That is, as passionate and as fierce a rivalry you can get. Newcastle against Sunderland, and Mitrovic played in that. And to say that this ranks alongside is a big compliment, as you say.
And of course, the last black and white Newcastle United shirt to score in a tiny and weird derby. Alexander Mitrovic played at St James's Park. Super stat for you there. But of course, Ali, going back to that big game, both teams have played since then as well.
That's right. Yeah, we are coming. This pod is coming sort of after a round of matches, and for good reason. Al-Hilal keep on winning. They overcame Al-Ittihad 2-1 with Al-Dawri and Mitrovic again scoring, while Al-Nassr returned to winning ways expectedly. We expected them to beat Riyadh, and they did 4-1. Goals from Ronaldo, Otavio, and 2 from the excellent Talisca. I keep singing his praises every week. Look, Al-Hilal now lead Al-Nassr by 7 points. That's a significant gap there, Peter. But, I mean, these are the top two, and Al-Nassr will be hoping to obviously close the gap in the coming weeks. But, below Al-Nassr, it's another 6 points to Al-Ta'awan. And there's that gap we've been talking about between the top two and the rest, Pete. It's I can see it getting bigger, and it would be, we're not taking sides obviously between Al-Hilal and Al-Nassr, but we look forward to like a close title race between those two. It's looking like it's a 2-horse race.
It is. No, we're not biased, but as we always say, as partisan, we're for the good of the game. It's excitement for the neutral. Ali, mentioned for a fire in the AFC Champions League, if you would. They qualified to the round of 16 to make it 4 out of 4 for Saudi clubs. Huge deal, that, by the way.
Yes, I know you've got friends in that fire, Pete, so you're quite pleased about that. Yes, so they went into, they kept their hopes alive last week, went into the last match day 6, with their hopes still there. But it was a very, very difficult game. They were away to Pakhtagor of Uzbekistan, and yet they came away with a brilliant 4-1 win, really unexpected, but superb win. And it makes it 4 out of 4 for Saudi Arabia. All 4 teams have qualified for the round of 16. This is, I'm not sure if it's the first time it's happened, but a fantastic achievement by the Saudi clubs.
Time to bring our guest, an Asian football expert, into the mix. It's Paul Williams, of course. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good, Pete. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Great to have you, as always. I'll put you straight into the capable hands of our AK. Ali, take it away.
Paul, how are you, mate?
Doing very well, Ali. How are yourself?
Good. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on all the Champions League developments in midweek.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot to take in. I mean, there's a huge result here in the east side of the draw with Urawa losing to Hanoi from Vietnam, which was a massive upset. And that knocks them out. The defending champions who defeated Al-Hilal in the final last year, now knocked out in the group stage, which is a remarkable development given that they're probably in Saudi Arabia already now preparing for the Club World Cup as well, which I'm sure we'll get on to talking about in a little bit. So that was a huge result. And from the west side of the draw, fantastic for Saudi Arabia to have all 4 clubs making it through to the knockout rounds. We expected it of Ittihad, Hilal, and Nassr, but for Al Fayed to also get through with a big win on the final day that saw them get through 4 from 4 through now to the knockout rounds. It really sets it up now for this to be dominated by Saudi Arabia in the back half of the draw in the West Zone in particular. Yeah,
great stuff, mate. Speaking of the Club World Cup, you just touched on it. Al-Ittihad, obviously through to the next round in the Champions League as expected. And this, somewhat of a promising start with Marcelo Gallardo, but then, they go ahead and they lose their next league game. It's a weird start. It's a weird season for Al-Ittihad. I mean, we said right at the beginning, signed very intelligently, signed very good players. Hasn't gone their way, and now they lost their last match and going into the to the Club World Cup, FIFA Club World Cup. How do you see their mood? How do you see their their chances?
Like you said, they really looked like they had turned a corner under Marcelo Gallardo. The start of his tenure had been pretty positive. The results had started to come a little bit. The performances were looking a little bit better as well. But then they had that loss to Damak, which kind of has thrown the cat amongst the pigeons. We now don't really know what to expect from Ittihad, because they look like they were on an upward trajectory. Now there's that result that's thrown into the mix, and I guess thrown some doubt over them heading into this Club World Cup, which we probably weren't expecting, because we know that so much investment was given to them as the Saudi team that was going to be in the Club World Cup. They were the ones that were trying to get Mohamed Salah, let's not forget, with the eyes on the fact that Ittihad were the club that were going to be in the Club World Cup. They are the team that is effectively representing this whole big push from Saudi football on the world stage. So there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders to perform. They've got to get through effectively what is almost a playoff against Auckland City first up, which you would expect them to do. Yes, they've lost against Damak, which is a disappointing result, but Damak are a better team than Auckland City as well. So you would expect them to get over Auckland City, and then they've got Al-Ahly from Egypt, which will be an incredible occasion. The thing for them is their defense this season is just not anywhere near as good as what it was last season. They were phenomenal last season with how tight they were at the back, breaking records for clean sheets and goals conceded. This season they're a little bit more porous at the back. They haven't had Ahmed Hegazi for most of the season. He's come back now, so perhaps that might provide a little bit more stability. But then they've just gone and lost Luis Felipe as well, I think for 6 weeks I saw today. So that's a further blow. So they just can't seem to get any rhythm into their performances this season. So it'll be fascinating to see how they get on in this Club World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, the last year's competition, we saw Al-Hilal obviously do very well. And in the end, I mean, in hindsight, it's easy to look back. Al-Hilal had been on such an amazing run for a couple of years, but it did affect the Club World Cup. Did affect them, I suppose, in a way. They fell behind in the league and never really caught up. There is, I mean, there's a bit of a price to pay for doing well in this Club World Cup halfway through the season. But I mean, with Al-Ittihad, they're not really doing that well in the league anyway. And this, as you say, if their defense has looked shaky, a few bad results here, and they've already fallen behind, significantly in the league anyway. Could be quite a disappointing period for them if they don't really turn it around quickly.
Even at this early stage of the season, this is almost all they've got to play for this season, which is crazy to think about, because as you said, they've already fallen so far behind as it is. Just looking at the table, they're already 16 points behind Al-Hilal. They're not turning that around this season. It's impossible to see them turning that around this season. Of course, I think Al-Hilal did the same to them a couple of years ago. So nothing is impossible. But given the form that Al-Hilal are in, they're not overturning a 16-point deficit halfway through the season. So this is what they've got to play for this season. It's a good performance in the Club World Cup. If it perhaps affects their league form a little bit, perhaps that's a price they need to pay at this point in time to get some good results under their belt. And perhaps that then gives them the confidence to go into the second half of the season and bounce back and make sure they do finish in the top four and get that Champions League qualification for next season. Because as it is, they're sitting fifth on the table. They've been jumped by Al Tawoun again. So, they're 3 points behind them. They've got to make sure they get into that top three, that top four positions, so they qualify for the Champions League next year, because that's the minimum expectation. So it was only 7 or 8 rounds ago they were top of the table. Now they're down in fifth. So they've dropped off rather suddenly. So perhaps some good performances here in the Club World Cup under Gallardo gives him extra time with the squad. Hopefully a few games in a row to cement his ideas within the squad, and then they can attack the second half of the season.
Yeah, you already mentioned that should they win against Auckland City, they will play Al-Ahly of Egypt. But let's get on to the other Asian representative, the Asian champions. Urawa, you already mentioned them. How do you see their chances?
It's interesting because they're coming into this in not particularly great form either. A little bit like Ittihad. They've only won 3 of their last 10, and I mentioned the result they had midweek in Hanoi when they lost that game. They needed to win against a team, a weaker team, if you can put it like that, who had already been eliminated from the competition. Yes, it was in Vietnam, but as the defending champions, you would expect Urawa to be able to go to Vietnam and get the result. They needed a win to keep their hopes alive of getting out of the group stage. And they came undone. Their form, particularly over the last probably month to 6 weeks of the J-League season, was incredibly poor. I think they only won about 1 of their last 5 or 6 games, and they fell out of calculations and, again, missed the Champions League spot on the final day of the season. So they won't be in the Champions League next season as well. So they finished the season incredibly disappointing. Their coach, Maciej Skorza, has already announced that he's leaving the club. So they have appointed a new coach. Skorza is still going to oversee this Club World Cup campaign, but they have already appointed a new coach for next season. Their biggest struggle is at the opposite end of to Ittihad. Ittihad have no trouble scoring. They just probably concede too many goals. Urawa have the opposite problem. They've got the best defense in the J-League. They just can't score goals. Jose Kante is their highest goal scorer. He only scored 8 goals for the season, which probably tells you all you need to know about their attack. If he's not scoring goals and Alexander Schultz is not scoring penalties, they don't create a lot from elsewhere. So you've got 2 sides from the Asian continent coming into to this competition, neither of them in particularly good form, which is disappointing for Asian football, that you potentially got 2 teams that are coming in disappointing shape. But we've seen it before. Teams come in maybe not the best form and turn it around. Perhaps Urawa have had their eye on this competition for a little bit and taken their eye off the ball domestically as well. So we'll see what happens when the play gets underway.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, of course, we will be, we will always champion, Saudi clubs, but Asian clubs as well, Arab clubs, and let's not forget, we'd love to see the, clubs from your side, from Oceania, do well as well. Be great, if should Auckland City progress, we'd want them to do well as well. But really, it's hard to look beyond, as usual. It's hard to look beyond, South American and European champions. And funnily enough, you'd expect this year Manchester City to walk away with it. They come in with a bit of inconsistent form, shall we say, as well.
They do, but they get a free pass, so to speak, in this competition, given that both they and Fluminense from South America only enter at the semi-final stage of this competition. So they only have to win 2 matches to win this competition. This is, of course, the last Club World Cup in this format before the expanded Club World Cup comes into being in 2025. I'm a big fan of the expanded format of the competition. I'm excited for what that means for club football around the world that is so dominated by European football. I think this then gives an opportunity for more clubs from around the world to participate on the bigger stage, because I think at the moment the Club World Cup, the way it's structured, is a little bit of an afterthought. The teams from Europe don't particularly probably give it the respect that it deserves. It's certainly huge in South America and other parts of the world, but perhaps not in Europe. I think the expanded Club World Cup is going to be huge, and we're going to see Saudi involvement in that. We know Al-Hilal has already qualified. Perhaps if another Saudi club, wins the Asian Champions League this season, they'll also qualify for that new expanded Club World Cup as well. So that's something to keep an eye on as the competitions develop over the years. We're going to see more Saudi clubs on the international stage, and hopefully Ittihad can put in a good performance this time around as well.
Paul, we follow you as well, and we follow your podcast, The Asian Game, which everyone should follow as well. All the listeners, you should follow Paul's excellent podcast, The Asian Game. I know I was, just looking at some of your posts yesterday. Big news from Qatar. Quick few words on that.
Yeah, huge bombshell during the week when it emerged that Carlos Queiroz and Qatar had parted ways just a month before the Asian Cup gets underway, which is huge news for Asian football. He was trumpeted as a headline signing for Qatar off the back of a disappointing World Cup, and he hasn't even lasted 12 months From what I understand from speaking to a few people, it seems like this was largely his decision. He doesn't seem like he was particularly happy with the environment in Qatar. He was not particularly happy with the development pathways, didn't see the talent coming through that he thought he needed to regenerate this side. And I guess rather than continue on and risk damaging his reputation, which is incredibly important to him, he's decided to pull the pin at this point in time, just a month before Qatar go on and try and defend their Asian Cup title. So it was huge news and bombshell news. Marquez Lopez is an interim manager from Al-Wakrah, the QSL club, who's going to take charge for their Asian Cup campaign. But they're in a little bit of a disarray just a month out from trying to defend their title.
Interesting stuff. And Paul, I'm sure we're going to be speaking to you very soon regarding that AFC Asian Cup. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Brilliant stuff there, Ali. Paul Williams, absolutely great. What a top football expert he really is. Very fortunate to have him on this show. Final word, though, will go to you as always. What are you looking forward to this week?
Well, Pete, obviously, I mean, there's no getting away with it. It's the Club World Cup. We are looking forward to that on Tuesday night. Auckland City against Al-Ittihad. Obviously, all Saudi fans. Well, I mean, all Ittihad fans, shall we say, but fans of Saudi football, shall we say, would be hoping Ittihad make through. And honestly, it would be to have Al-Ittihad play against Al-Ahli of Egypt in an all-Arab clash at the FIFA Club World Cup. That would be fantastic. We'd all look forward to that. And then, of course, the rest of the tournament, as we already mentioned, Manchester City strong favourites, but look, Al-Hilal have done themselves proud in this tournament in the past, and let's hope Al-Ittihad do the same. On the league front, obviously Ittihad are not playing, Al-Nassr are not playing next week as well. So Al-Hilal, who take on Wahda at home, we expect them to win that. Should can extend their lead at the top. So it could be. I mean, we know Al-Hilal. They're a winning machine. They see themselves as the biggest club in Saudi, the biggest club in Asia. They'll probably be keeping an eye on the Club World Cup with a little bit of envy, thinking, that's usually us. But they're having a fantastic season at home, and again, the chance to extend their lead in the league, they'll take that. They'll take that.
Brilliant stuff, as always. Sports editor of Arab News, Ali Khaled. We're all off to bask in the glory of 4 out of 4 Saudi clubs in the AFC Champions League. Good luck this weekend if your team is playing, whoever they're up against. And we'll see you next week again on another episode of Dawri.